Teoscar Hernandez should be the Dodgers' biggest priority in the beginning of the offseason. Let's get locked on Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yo, Dodger fans. Welcome to Locked On Dodgers. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the number one local sports daily podcast network. Locked On, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with the big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. This is a daily podcast covering the World Series champion Los Angeles Dodgers, bringing you the smart fans' perspective on our boys in blue. You can find us wherever you find podcasts and on YouTube. All you got to do is search for Locked On Dodgers. You can become an everydayer by listening or watching every day, which can be made easier by subscribing and getting notified when our episodes are ready or when we're going live on YouTube, as we do sometimes. If this is your first time listening or watching, welcome. My name is Vince Samperio, usually joined by Jeff Snyder, but Jeff needed a day off, and I got it covered for him. We had a little bit usually this episode would have been out earlier or live the night before, but, sometimes we want to enjoy life, and we're going to get this podcast to you regardless. But, I wanted to do it on a full night's sleep rather than try to give you guys an episode that wasn't my full self. So that's why we're here. Friday morning, this episode will drop, and yeah, we're Jeff and I are both lifelong Dodger fans. We've covered the team for a decade now in a few different ways. We've been doing this podcast for 6 seasons now. We've seen a lot of Dodgers, talked a lot of Dodgers, been in the press box, been in the locker room. We've done everything to continue to bring you this Dodger podcast. And that's what we're here to do today, talk about the Dodgers. As I alluded to in the beginning, I think Teoscar Hernandez should be the Dodgers' top priority this offseason, at least early in this offseason. Get a deal done with him, and then you can proceed however you want to proceed or need to proceed the rest of the offseason. And this comes off the heels of a report that the Red Sox and Orioles were interested in Teoscar Hernandez. Red Sox makes sense. Tyler O'Neill's a free agent, so they need somebody else in their lineup. They need some thump in that lineup. And the Orioles, Anthony Santander is a free agent, so if they're not going to bring him back, Teoscar would be a similar comparable guy to bring in. And for me, I think Anthony Santander would be on the flip side would be a comparable guy to bring in for the Dodgers if they don't get Teoscar Hernandez. Obviously, Juan Soto has been a big talk of the offseason so far. And, if the Dodgers have interest, how much interest there is, if Soto's interested in playing for the Dodgers, there's reports that he wants to play on the East Coast, whatever the case is. And I personally, knowing that there is no salary cap in baseball. Yes, there is luxury tax implications, but the Dodgers should be at a point where that's not the biggest thing on their worry, especially after winning a World Series title and trying to repeat and trying to capitalize on these next 3 to 5 years when Freddie's still here, when Mookie's still, in his relative prime, and, Ohtani obviously at the beginning of his deal. So I think they should maximize that. So I don't think Teoscar Hernandez being a priority and signing him takes them out of anything else, even including a potential Juan Soto deal. Like realistically, if Mookie moves to second base, they have room for Juan Soto and Teoscar Hernandez in the outfield. Like we talked about before, it might not be the best defensive team in the world, but you might be slugging enough to overcome all that. But either way, I think Teo is one of those where you don't want to be a prisoner of the moment. And I think, going after different types of players on the team, Jack Flaherty, to me might be a little bit more prisoner of the moment. Yeah, he wants to stay here. He's from LA. He has the cool story, but is that something the Dodgers necessarily need? That remains to be seen. But I would say starting pitching, while a priority, I think getting Teo done takes precedent just for the simple fact that he wants to come back. He's already shown that he would take a deal that's more friendly to the team in order to be back. And, he's probably one of the most important parts of the offense if you're looking to run things back. And it'll be interesting to see, like, okay, yeah, he says he wants to come back, but does he want to come back on a cheaper deal? Does he want to, is he set on a number of years that he wants? Is he set on a number of salary that he actually wants? Or is he really open to coming back to the Dodgers and kind of, figuring things out together? But, for Teo, he'll be 32 next season. No, he just turned 31. So he's 32, just turned 32. So yeah, he'll be 32 all of next season. So, relatively young still, not quite in the space where you're worried about him getting too old. But I do think that limits it to a 3-year deal, or 3-year deal with maybe some kind of option. I think that's what the Dodgers would look at. Obviously, 20 to 25 million range. You would imagine that's what he would be looking at. But, if you offer him 360 and he says yes, you take that every day. You look back at Teo's numbers in the season, hit 272, OPS of 840, 32 doubles, 33 homers, 99 RBIs. Did strike out 188 times, but that was less than he struck out last year, and a little bit more than he struck out in years past. But again, he added the value that you wanted. The OPS plus was 137, which was the second highest of his career. So, clearly something worked in Los Angeles. And then, you get to the postseason, and he did relatively well for the Dodgers, all but the one series. Like, he hit 333 in the NLDS, he hit 350 in the World Series. He did hit 091 in the NLCS, but when it came down to clinching in NLCS Game 6, that's when he had his 2 hits of the entire series. So, Teo was great for the Dodgers this year. 3 homers, 12 RBI. Like, he contributed to the Dodgers World Series win in a big way. And as much as it's hard to quantify somebody a clutch player, somebody better in October, somebody whatever, Teo has shown in the past, it could go either way. He had one series with the Rays in 2020 or with the Blue Jays against the Rays, where he hit 143 and had just one hit. And then in 2022, he had 2 hits, but they were both homers and drove in 4 runs. Obviously, he had a big postseason for the Dodgers this year. So, but he's definitely a guy that seems to come through in the moments and has the ability to come through in the moments. Obviously, he is a guy that does strike out a lot. And there was times during the regular season where, he struck out. And there was times in the postseason where he struck out when, we could have used something else. But that's everybody these days. A lot of people strike out a lot. And he's a guy. I think the biggest part is that if so many guys want him back, Dave Robert wants him back. He seemed to gel very well in the clubhouse. And I think when there's people saying they would take Teoscar Hernandez over Juan Soto, I think that's the biggest factor of what they're thinking about is, Juan Soto doesn't have the greatest reputation overall as being, one of those teammates for whatever, mostly because of his time with the Padres, I would imagine, because the Nationals, he was great. And with the Yankees, he seemed fine. So, but, people talk about the chemistry, and I think that's, well, yes, that makes sense. And that's a big thing. I don't know if I would put Teo as my number 1 free agent over Juan Soto because of that. Juan Soto is such a good hitter, such a disciplined hitter, would add a wild element to this Dodger lineup. But I do think, with me having Teo saying that he's the number 1 priority for the Dodgers, it's one to get it over with, to have him in the bag. Because if you try to make, let's just say, Juan Soto your number 1 priority, and you don't end up getting him, but Teo already signed with somebody else, now you're in a tough spot. So I think you sign Teo for sure. And then, if the Juan Soto talks become entertained, then you can still entertain those. You still have the money. You'll be able to do it. Will you be deep in the luxury tax? Maybe. But at the end of the day, like, the Dodgers have enough money to pay everyone that they want to, if they really, really want to. And that's what it comes down to. But yeah, I think for getting him on the roster, getting him secured for the team next year, I believe you just, get Teo, lock it down right now, and then you deal with everything else in the offseason after that. And I really do think that that's what the Dodgers should do. I don't know if that's what they are doing, but, hopefully this offseason is a faster moving offseason than off seasons past. And a lot of these things happen here in the next month, or at least when we get to the winter meetings there in December. So we're going to talk about Garrett Crochet next, as he was named or the Dodgers were named as a team that's been most aggressive looking into trading for him. Should that still be on the Dodgers wish list? We'll talk about that, so make sure to keep it locked on Dodgers. Today's episode is brought to you by Ibotta. If you love the holidays but hate grocery shopping, Ibotta is making your Thanksgiving easier with cash back on everything you need to make your perfect holiday meal, so you can get the turkey and your favorite sides for free. Grocery bills can really add up this time of year, but this Thanksgiving, you don't need to stress about food shopping when you use Ibotta, because you can earn cash back on all the things that you were already going to buy. And this month, Ibotta is giving new users 100% cash back on your Thanksgiving feast. Just add the offers in the app to redeem for everything you need to make your Thanksgiving feast complete. Ibotta gives you cash back on hundreds of grocery items, from produce to personal care to pantry goods, so you can get everything you need for the holidays. And you can also earn cash back on hundreds of online brands and retailers too, not just groceries, when you start with Ibotta, including Lowe's, Macy's, Sephora, Best Buy, and more. So download the Ibotta app now and use code LOCKEDONMLB to get 100% cash back on your Thanksgiving feast starting November 1st. Just go to the App Store or Google Play Store, download the free Ibotta app, and use code LOCKEDONMLB. That's IBOTTA in the Google Play or App Store, and code LOCKEDONMLB. Today's episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. Not only can you place your bets there, you can also check out the latest stats. So if you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out those stats, view the live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You can do all the research you need right there on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. All you got to do is visit FanDuel.com to join today. There's plenty of NFL games to put your $5 bet on. So Jeff took the favorite in the Ravens Bengals, and his $5 bet would have won, barely, but it won, and he would have had 150 in bonus bets if that's the bet you would have took. So FanDuel.com, check it all out. You get $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. I want to thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day, or any listen of the day. First listen of the day. We appreciate you if you are someone that is an everydayer, that's someone that listens or watches every day. Remember, you can check out Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles, 24/7 streaming channels from the Locked On Podcast Network, bringing you the biggest news and stories from the sports world and the LA sports world. That's running all day, all night on YouTube. And you can check out our buddy Sully with Locked On MLB podcast. He's running probably every day, or at least mostly every day these days. So make sure to go check him out. All right, let's talk about Garrett Crochet, because there was a report or a note in an article from Bob Nightingale kind of giving a lot of things going on in the offseason, what he's hearing, the hot stove, whatever you want to call it. And one of the things in there was talking about Garrett Crochet. And he said that Garrett Crochet, the White Sox have openly told teams he's available and are expected to trade him by end of the winter meetings. And then he added the Philadelphia Phillies and the Dodgers are the most aggressive. White Sox GM Chris Getz said a long list of teams have expressed interest. The right players have to be there. We are focusing on position player return. We can't force anything that is clear. So, yeah, Garrett Crochet, we talked a lot about him around the trade deadline, and it was, we wanted him as Dodger fans, yes. We weren't entirely sure what it was going to do. He kind of put a onus of an extension if he got traded in order to pitch in the postseason, which was going to be definitely a bluff, I would have called. And we said it at the time, definitely a bluff you called, because what are you going to do? Like, you're not going to pitch in October if you get traded to a team. You're going to look at all the teammates in the eye and say, sorry, I'm not pitching in October. I don't think that would have happened. But either way, like, Garrett Crochet is an interesting case, especially for the Dodgers, like in the position they are now. Obviously, at the trade deadline, the Dodgers needed arms, and Garrett Crochet was one of the better arms you could go out and get. But now when you kind of step back and look at it, it's like, okay, do they really still need a guy like Garrett Crochet? And obviously, the talent-wise, yes, you always want talent on your team, and Garrett Crochet has the talent. And you look overall at his numbers last year, and for somebody that was going from reliever to starter, for somebody that hadn't had that workload, he had a bigger workload than almost probably I think every other Dodger starting pitcher. He made 32 starts, 146 innings. Second half of the season, a lot of his starts were abbreviated starts. But if he was on a team that was contending for a title, maybe he would have pushed himself a little bit more. He finished with a 3.58 ERA, a 2.69 FIP. So definitely got a little bit of bad luck there. Maybe some bad defense by the White Sox, whatever it was. That definitely, a whip of 1.068. He had 209 strikeouts in those 146 innings. So this is an elite talent arm, and a guy that now has, a 32 start season under his belt. He is still under, team control until 2027. He begins arbitration this year, I believe. So he'll get a little bit of a bump on the $800,000 he made last year. But I think obviously it's tough to say what the White Sox are going to want, because we got the Dodgers, the trade that brought in Michael Kopech and Tommy Edman. While Edman didn't come from the White Sox directly, the Dodgers sent Miguel Vargas, and ultimately that's probably, not going to bite the Dodgers. There's a couple other minor leaguers, low-end prospects traded, that could hurt the Dodgers maybe, but the Dodgers won the World Series in the first year, and, they probably don't. Like, even if Miguel Vargas became an MVP, I don't think you regret that trade at all, because you already have the World Series title in hand. But for Garrett Crochet, yeah, I do think the Dodgers can explore it. Gavin Lux, I don't know how big of a trade chip he is. He only has 2 years left of team control, but he is a guy that has shown he could be at least an everyday second baseman in this league. But for the White Sox, the rebuild's probably going to be longer than 2 years, so they're probably going to want some other guys. And for the Dodgers, when you look at their top prospects, it is a mixed bag in terms of, or a pretty split enough between pitchers and position players. You got probably more position players in the top 10 and more pitchers in the next 10. But I guess it's, how much you value Garrett Crochet. Dalton Rushing, probably not on the board. Josue de Paula, probably not on that board. But Alex Freeland, a shortstop prospect, the Dodgers don't necessarily have somebody next up at shortstop. They could sign Willy Adames and then make this trade for Garrett Crochet, and then Alex Freeland opens up, and then that's a top tier prospect there, at shortstop. You got guys like Joe Andrew Vargas, Emil Morales, super young, 19 and 18. Are the White Sox looking for that young? Are they looking for more closer to major league ready? You got Zahir Hope is after the October November he's had in the Arizona Fall League. I would imagine he's going to be a top thing for the Dodgers, and probably not someone that they're looking to trade. You got guys like Kendall George, who plays in the outfield, who's really fast, who's, a top pick from a couple years ago. They're going to have to trade Diego Cartaya at some point, because, there's just not room for him with Will Smith, and they brought back Barnes and, Dalton Rushing and Hunter Fiducia, and they're going to need the 40-man roster spot, and I don't know how much longer Diego Cartaya can hold it up. And, we always talked about Diego Cartaya in the past of, oh, he's so young and, working his way up. Well, now Diego Cartaya is 23 years old, and he still hasn't been to the majors. You don't know if there's a spot for him to open up to get to the majors with the Dodgers. So, that's a guy that could be dangled there. So the Dodgers have the depth in order to make this deal for Garrett Crochet. Again, it's going to depend, like, are the White Sox going to want a king's ransom after maybe kind of being ridiculed a little bit at the deadline for some of the deals they made and who they got back? I'm not sure, but in terms of should you go after him? Yeah. Should you consider a trade for him for Garrett Crochet? Yes. Like, he's a perfect guy for the Dodgers, especially when you know that they're going to have a 6-man rotation next year. Like, yeah, he threw 146 innings this year. You would imagine he's going to be built up. He's going to be fine. He made 32 starts, but if you want to keep guys like that fresh, for sure, you throw him on a team with a 6-man rotation. And, Otani, Yamamoto, Glasnow, Garrett Crochet, like, that sounds ridiculous. And also, obviously the Dodgers are going to account for injuries and everything else. But, like, when you think about guys that need 5+ days rest every time they pitch, and you think about October, you definitely need 4 starters or 4, more legitimate starters when you get to October, because you can't always put together those bullpen pieces. You're not always going to face teams that you feel comfortable enough, throwing a bullpen game or trying to get away with a game. And if it doesn't work out, you have the next one. So I think the Dodgers should go after Garrett Crochet. Obviously, everything we always talk about in terms of trades, there's never been a guy where it's like, okay, trade the farm for him, and I don't care. The Dodgers are starting, there was a point maybe in the last couple of years where that was a little bit more the case, just because the Dodgers didn't quite have the top tier names or names, prospects that we were like, oh yeah, keep this guy. I think right now, with DePaula and rushing and maybe even Zahir Hope, and then obviously some of the pitchers, it might be to the point where I don't think any of them are untouchable in my eyes. But, I don't know if Garrett Crochet is the guy that you give up top tier prospects for. But if you're in that next tier of prospects, I definitely think that's someone you give it up for. So we'll see. Again, the Dodgers are going to be named and linked to every free agent, every guy available on the trade block, because it makes sense to have one of the best teams in baseball. If you're the one feeding the source, feeding information to a reporter, you want teams or players to think that, hey, the Dodgers are interested in this guy, so you should be interested in this guy. So we'll see what happens. I'm sure things will kind of cook up here in the next month or so. And as other pitcher, like Roki Sasaki, we talked about, like, if he does get posted, the Dodgers do get him. It shouldn't preclude them from anything else, because it's not going to cost them really much. And realistically, you don't know how he's going to perform. So you can't count on Roki Sasaki being your jewel pitching addition to the roster. He can be the second addition to somebody else, that whether you get via trade or free agency. So, all right, we're going to finish up today's episode just giving a salute to Daniel Hudson and Kevin Kiermaier, both guys that are going out on top as World Series champions. So make sure to keep it locked on Dodgers. Today's episode is brought to you by Robinhood. Robinhood Gold is here for you to help you out. You don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get the rates and perks usually reserved for the high society. Now, the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn the very liberal rate of 4.5% APY on uninvested cash and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on an IRA account. Our Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of a high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. That's $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at robinhood.com/gold. Terms apply. For product-specific disclosures, visit robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rate may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold LLC. want to thank you for being an everyday, or if you are one an everyday, or just someone that listens or watches every day. We usually been going live a lot of these episodes. This is our first non-live episode in a while, so we appreciate you guys. If you're usually in the chat, you can drop a comment, and we appreciate that. Remember, you can go beyond the podcast, come a Locked On Dodgers Insider at joinsubtext.com/Locked On Dodgers. Get text directly from us with any news, rumors, thoughts about the Dodgers the entire offseason. That's joinsubtext.com/Locked On Dodgers. All right, so like I said, the last thing I just wanted to talk about Kevin Kiermaier and Daniel Hudson. We'll talk about Kiermaier first, since he was the newest guy between the two, and we have. If you have strong feelings about Kevin Kiermaier, it might be about a different reason than the baseball reasons. But either way, he put out a tweet after the Dodgers won, after the parade, and said, "What a time to be alive, ending my career out as World Series champs. All credit goes to my amazing teammates. Thank you, Dodgers, for the best opportunity I could ever hope for. Champs forever." And it was reported that the Dodgers had wanted to sign Kevin Kiermaier before the year started. Didn't end up happening. He went with the Blue Jays, and then the Dodgers ended up trading for him. And while he wasn't a top name of the deadline, obviously Michael Kopech, Jack Flaherty, Tommy Edman were the highlights. Kevin Kiermaier was a good guy to have around, and for the Dodgers, he did have that one big homer that he hit. He provided good defense, made a couple of great defensive plays. And, what a way to go out. Like, to be on a team that wasn't going to make the postseason, get traded to the Dodgers, and now, you're a World Series champion, and that's the way you end your career. Like, it's a pretty cool story. Kevin Kiermaier was a guy that's been linked to the Dodgers multiple times over the years, obviously because he was with the Rays forever and was with the Rays, I think, when Friedman was still there, or Friedman was one of the guys that picked him up. Overall, he had a solid career. Obviously, offensively is not his forte. He ended his career with the 706 OPS, 95 OPS plus, so almost around league average hitting. But he does have 4 Gold Glove awards, and a lot of highlight reel plays that will be seen anytime someone mentions or talks about Kevin Kiermaier. So, and like I said, he fit in with the Dodgers. He knew what his role was. His role was to bring some defense and to bring veteran presence or just a bright personality to the dugout, and that's what he appeared to do. And I think personally, my favorite thing about Kevin Kiermaier was just seeing him in the post clinch celebrations. He was the star of the show for sure for the NLDS when they beat the Padres, and then NLCS World Series. He was one of the guys that was keeping the party going. And it was fun to see. He's a guy that he knew he was retiring. He knew this was his last year, and why not enjoy it, soak it all in, and then he, kind of became a little bit of a viral MLB guy with the way he spoke Spanish and had the accents down, and was able to bring that fun to it. So, shout out to Kevin Kiermaier. He was fun to watch defensively on other teams. He was fun to watch defensively in the short time that he was here with the Dodgers, and to go out on top as World Series champ is got to be a great feeling, especially for a guy that's had a long career as him. And I move on to Daniel Hudson, who had more of a hand in helping the Dodgers win the World Series. Been with the Dodgers 4 seasons, but 3 consecutive seasons. He was here in 2018 and was okay for the Dodgers. And then he was here, obviously was really good in 2022, got hurt, came back, got hurt. 2023 just pitched the 3 games for the Dodgers. And then 2024 came back and pitched in 65 games for the Dodgers with the 3 ERA. Like, he was pretty good for that bullpen. It definitely was limitations in him for in his last year. He couldn't really go back to back. He wasn't as effective on the second night. Couldn't really, pitch too often. There was times where he took, a week-long break where the Dodgers didn't pitch him. But ultimately, he was a guy that was there for the Dodgers the entire season for the most part. And, even in the postseason, if you remember him in Game 4, giving up the grand slam to Anthony Volpe. But regardless of all that, like he had it like in the NLDS, he pitched 2 1/3 innings without allowing any runs and just allowing 1 hit. So like he was effective there, against the Mets, 2 innings, the 1 earned run, and then in the World Series, 1.2 innings and the 4 earned runs, which came on the grand slam. But Daniel Hudson's a guy that fought back and fought back and fought back, and for him to see all that rewarded by winning the World Series, it was a cool moment because there was a few guys like that for the Dodgers, like Blake Trinan and Daniel Hudson. You can lump them in together as guys that came with the Dodgers, got hurt, and fought back when they didn't need to. Like they were already into their mid to late 30s. They could have called it a career and they would have been fine. Daniel Hudson had a World Series with the Nationals. Blake Trinan had the World Series with the Dodgers already. So like they had their rings, but they wanted to get that one more. And Daniel Hudson, if nothing else, you'll remember, him as someone who was about to or was ready to blow his arm out again for the Dodgers. Like he was warming up in that game 5 and said that if he would have went out and pitched, he probably would have blew his arm out because he could feel his elbow barking. And, for him to be wanting to push through that, like that was just shows the kind of guy he is. I'm sure at that point he knew that this was his last year already anyways. So that obviously helps a little bit with that decision. But, and he Blake Trinan brought him up and kind of mentioned him as the leader of the bullpen, the dogs as they were called. And, whether it was leading by example, whether it was leading by, being vocal, whatever it was, clearly the guys looked up to him in that bullpen and the bullpen, I talked to a lot of the guys during media day for the World Series about the bullpen and, kind of how they could go in, anywhere from the first inning to the 9th inning. These guys, starting the game to ending the game, these guys all pitched in different roles throughout the entire year. And, it takes a couple of veteran guys and maybe Daniel Hudson as being one of those guys like, hey guys, this is a guy that's closed out a World Series. Like, and if he's saying, hey, you know what, I'm doing whatever the team wants. We put our egos aside. We come in the 2nd inning. We come in the 5th inning. We come in the 9th inning, whatever it is. Like we do our job. And shout out to him. Like I said, coming back from leg injuries, arm injuries, all that type of stuff, starting his career as a starter, just a big shout out to Daniel Hudson. Will be remembered. I'm sure when people look back on his career, you'll remember him getting the last out of the Nationals World Series and throwing his glove out. But, you'll definitely, as Dodger fans, will remember him as a Dodger. And I don't know if there's, specific moments. We might remember the injuries, him getting hurt, playing defense. But either way, everyone on this 2024 Dodger team will be remembered, and Daniel Hudson will be a guy that was remembered and a guy that will be remembered going out on top. So shout out to those two guys. We appreciate them, and good luck to the rest of your life now that you're retired from baseball. So that's going to do it for today's episode. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day. Make sure to find us wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. All you got to do is search for Locked On Dodgers. You can subscribe and get notified when episodes are ready, or if we go live on YouTube. You can check out Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles, 2 24/7 streaming channels from the Locked On Podcast Network, bringing you the biggest news and stories from the sports world and the LA sports world. You go beyond the podcast, become a Locked On Dodgers insider at joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. You can follow us on social media, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Locked On Dodgers. Jeff's on Twitter at SnydDog. I'm at Vincent91. You can email us, LockedOnDodgers@gmail.com, or send a voicemail or leave a text at 323-863-5625. We're here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be here with us. When you get in your car, if you're at home, to your smart device, play podcast, Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. Have a good one.